Hi, my name is Yona. I'm the after school leader at Field Teen Center, and today, just for fun, I'm going to be doing a bookshelf challenge where I'll be doing a scavenger hunt trying to find actual physical books in my space that answer one of the questions on this list. I'm going to be cheating a little bit because I'm using both my bookshelf and all the overflow on my dresser top. So about half of these are books that I own and some of them are borrowed from other sources, but they're in my room and they're on kind of a shelf, so we're gonna say it counts. So let's dig in. Z is for Susan Zakin, author of Coyotes and Town Dogs, which is a nonfiction book about the history of the Earth First movement, told in a very journalistic style. I think it's interesting because this was a period of time when the environmental movement was doing some very radical, questionable things, and she gives some context for why people were doing a lot. They were doing a lot. This is printed as a Barnes & Noble classic, so we're gonna say it counts. This is Grimm's Fairy Tales, and this is one that I revisit and kind of pick through pretty often. I like having this big collection because there are a lot of Grimm's fairy tales that aren't told as often as some of the others, like Thousand Furs, which is one of my favorite super weird ones. There's also one about a guy who kind of just becomes so hairy and overgrown his family doesn't recognize him. Things like that. You know, just Grimm's things. So I don't have a book with a key on it, but I do have an actual key. Why? What does it go to? Who knows? But I have it. I actually have a lot of things on my bookshelf that are not books. I've got a little zone of non-books taking up, a lot of space that I could put actual books on now that I think about it. But I'm going to choose to highlight this little piece of pottery. I just think it's got like a cool pattern, so I've kept it. Why? Who knows? But I have it. I'm not sure if this means the oldest printing or just the oldest story, but I do have a copy of the King James Bible. In college, I had a professor who had a copy of every religious text from every major world religion on her shelf, and I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not quite at that level, but maybe that's the goal. I've got Wicked Fox by Kat Cho, which I'm borrowing from the library, as you can tell because it's very shiny. So she's a girl and she's also a fox. She is a gumiho, which is the Korean nine-tailed fox, very similar to the Japanese version of this story. And her kind is known for eating the livers of unsuspecting humans. But oops, she went and fell in love with one instead. If this book sounds interesting to you, you should definitely check it out from Field Teen Center. My animal is a crow. I've got Demon Voices by Philip Pullman. This is a collection of essays and just kind of inklings about his writing process, things he's written. It's just writing about writing, basically, which I wouldn't always be interested in, but I really like Philip Pullman, so I care about what he has to say about writing. I've got The Last Wish by Andrej Sapkowski, which is about Geralt of Rivia, aka the Witcher. He's a very big, strong boy. He has two swords, one of steel for men and one of silver for monsters. And the sneaky thing about that is that sometimes men are monsters. How about the best American short stories of what year? 2001. Oh boy, this one's old. So I have this collection because it was edited by Barbara Kingsolver, who I really like as a writer of her own right. So I wanted to see which short stories she would pick as the best of that year. This is a reoccurring collection. They do one each year and they invite a different author to pick the stories that will go in it. So I actually have a couple volumes. I have one from Amy Tan and one from Alice Sebold, who wrote The Lovely Bones. And it's just nice because you get a whole bunch of stories that you might not have encountered otherwise. I don't know if each story in this collection is my favorite, but I do really like some of them. My book with illustrations is Elatsoe. I'm really excited to have the physical version of this book because it has these little illustrations. I first read the audiobook, which obviously is not illustrated, so it's kind of a treat to get to flip through the book and see all the little drawings. Like, these are cute. The closest thing I have to gold lettering is on the cover of The Labyrinth, which is a volume of comics based on the movie. This was a present from my sister one year because I love the movie, always have. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. It's very weird. It's from the 80s. It's full of puppets. It's a great time. I think the only diary that I have on my shelf at home is mine. It's not a current one, but I keep a lot of old journals from, man, when I was in high school through college up to now. I've got An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Hank and Green are both pretty common names. In fact, it's so common that when my roommate offered this book to me, I thought that it was by his brother, John Green. I've got a close-up of a pitcher plant on my copy of Barbara Kingsolver's Unsheltered. It's about characters who care about plants in general. One of them is Mary Treat, who was a real scientist who lived in New Jersey. And this is a fictionalized account of a character who met her and had some thoughts and feelings about things she had to say. I'm cheating a little bit here because this is a collection of short stories, so it's from a bunch of different time periods. But in Hate Ship, Friendship, Courtship, Love Ship, Marriage, a collection of short stories by Alice Munro, there's a short story about a woman living in the 1920s who has to ship a bunch of furniture somewhere. And you know, that doesn't sound like it's about much, but it was a very interesting story. I actually haven't read a lot of the books on my shelf yet, which is why I have them, so I can read them. But one that I'm really looking forward to reading is Steering Craft, which is Ursula K. Le Guin's writing guide. She's a really great writer, and I have heard really interesting things about this book and some of the weird prompts that she gives, so I'm really excited to dig into it and see what she has to say. It's also little, so that's kind of a treat after reading some big hefty books. For a turquoise book, I've picked The Grand Tour by Adam O'Fallon Price. This is another book that I haven't actually read yet, but it is definitely turquoise, and it's got even a turquoise car on the turquoise cover. It looks interesting, which is why I have it, and maybe one of these days I'll be able to tell you what I thought about it. For a book with a star, I've got Dream Country by Shannon Gibney. The reason it has a star is because it's about immigration, and so it's especially evoking the Liberian flag, which has some of the same colors as the American flag, which is where this family has emigrated to and is living for several generations, getting all muddled up in what it means to be an American who is also from someplace else originally. Most of the books on my shelf actually are not specifically young adult stories, so I've picked Interpreter of Maladies. This is a series of short stories by Jhumpa Lahiri, and I've heard great things about it. I haven't read this one yet either, but I'm really excited about it. It's a very intriguing title. A book that I finished recently is Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray, another really nice cover, and to hear my thoughts about it, you'll have to check out my book talk. This was a really good challenge because it made me think about things that have been sitting on my shelf, literally collecting dust for a while, and think again about what do I want to read next. So I hope this was fun, and if you feel inspired to do your own version of this challenge, definitely give us a shout out because we'd love to see what kinds of books you have at your house. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.